When my daughter laughed and said, "No one wants an old woman like you," the sound echoed longer than the words themselves. It was a brittle laugh, sharp, careless. Young Dot, we were standing in the kitchen of the house I had lived in for 32 years. The late afternoon light filtered through the curtains I had sewn when she was 5. I remember because she had insisted on choosing the fabric sunflowers on a pale blue background. She said it made the room look like happiness. Now she stood across from me, phone in hand, perfectly manicured nails, tapping the counter, as if she were waiting for a delivery, instead of speaking to her mother. "You can't seriously think about dating," she added, still smiling. "It's embarrassing." I didn't answer at first. I was holding a mug of tea, though I had forgotten to drink it. My reflection in the microwave door showed silver strands. I no longer bothered to dye and fine lines mapping the years around my eyes. Embarrassing. I had given birth at 22, worked 2 jobs when her father left, stayed up nights, sewing costumes, helping with math homework, soothing fevers, listening to teenage heartbreak. I had been nurse, chauffeur, referee, and audience, but now I was 50-4, and apparently obsolete. I didn't say I was getting married tomorrow. I replied carefully. I said I met someone at the community art class. She rolled her eyes. "Mom, please. Men your age are just looking for someone to cook and clean. And the ones who aren't, they want younger women." Her laughter returned, lighter this time, dismissive. "No one wants an old woman like you." Something inside me didn't break, it went quiet. Not shattered glass, not a storm, just silence. I looked at Hurley. She was 27, beautiful, confident, successful in ways I had once only dreamed for her. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, lived in a sleek apartment, and dated men who drove cars I couldn't pronounce. I had raised her to be strong, but I had not raised her to be cruel. She didn't see the shift in me. She was too busy texting someone, probably recounting how her delusional mom thought she could date again. After her father died 3 years earlier, yes, the same man who left us had come back in the end. Fragile and regretful, she had stepped into a strange role. Protective, possessive. As if widowhood were my final state, my assigned identity. She believed loyalty to my past meant surrendering my future. That evening, after she left, I washed the dishes slowly and thought about all the versions of myself. I had been daughter, wife, single mother, widow, but somewhere along the way, I had stopped being simply me. The next morning, I did something I had not done in decades. I made an appointment at a photography studio, not for glamour shots, not to prove anything, but because I wanted to see myself clearly. The studio was small, run by a woman around my age, named Clara. She wore her gray hair in a bold, cropped cut and greeted me with a warmth that felt like sunlight. "What brings you in?" she asked. "I want a portrait," I said. "Not to look younger, not to hide the lines, just as I am." Clara smiled slowly. "My favorite kind." We spent 2 hours experimenting with light and angles. I wore a deep emerald blouse I had almost donated last year because I thought it was too much. Clara insisted it was perfect. "Your face tells stories," she said as she adjusted the camera. "That's not something to erase. That's something to honor." No one had spoken to me like that in years. When the photos were ready a week later, I stared at them in disbelief. I did not look old. I looked alive. Strong cheekbones, thoughtful eyes, a softness at the corners of my mouth that came from surviving grief and choosing kindness anyway. The silver in my hair glowed under the studio light like threads of moonlight. I purchased 1 large print and several smaller copies. Then I did the second thing. I submitted my portfolio to a local gallery that was hosting an exhibition titled Women Through Time. They were inviting women over, 52 share portraits and short personal essays about reinvention. 3 years earlier, I would have laughed at myself for even considering it. Now, I wrote until midnight. I wrote about raising a child alone, about rediscovering painting at 53, about the first time I laughed without guilt after my husband's death, about loneliness and about courage. I titled my piece, "Not Finished Yet." 2 weeks passed. Then I received the email. They had selected me as one of the featured participants. Not only that, they wanted me to speak at the opening night. My hands trembled as I read the message. Not from fear. From recognition. I wasn't invisible, I was evolving. When I told my daughter, she barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, Mom," she said, "but don't expect a big crowd. Those events are mostly retirees." Her tone wasn't malicious this time, just indifferent. I nodded. "I won't expect anything. I said. Opening night arrived on a cool Friday evening. I wore the emerald blouse again, paired with tailored black pants, and the pearl earrings my mother had given me years ago. The gallery buzzed with conversation. Women of every shape, color, and story stood beside their portraits. Some had survived cancer, some had started businesses at 60, one had left a 40-year marriage to travel the world alone. And there I was. Among them, my portrait hung under soft lighting, my essay printed neatly beside it. People stopped, they read, they nodded. A young woman in her early 30s approached me with tears in her eyes. "My mom passed away last year," she said quietly. "Seeing you up there, it feels like she's being honored too." We talked for 15 minutes. Then another woman joined us, then another. When it was time for speeches, my heart pounded, but not with doubt, with purpose. I stepped to the small podium and looked out at the crowd. I almost didn't submit my photo. I began, because someone I love told me no one wants an old woman. A murmur rippled through the room. I believed that for a moment. I continued, that my worth had an expiration date, that my dreams should shrink politely with age. I paused. But here's what I've learned. Wanting is not limited to youth. I want new experiences. I want connection. I want laughter that surprises me. I want to wake up curious. The room was silent, and I deserved those things. Applause rose slowly, then swelled. After the event, as people lingered with wine glasses and soft smiles, I saw her. My daughter stood near the entrance. I hadn't known she was coming. Her eyes were red. She wasn't laughing. She walked toward me slowly, weaving through the crowd, past strangers who had just congratulated me. "Mom," she whispered. I waited. I didn't know. "Know what?" I asked gently. "That you felt invisible." Her voice cracked. "That I made you feel that way." I hadn't intended to make her cry. I hadn't orchestrated revenge or humiliation. All I had done was stand up. "I didn't need you to want me," I said softly. "I needed you to respect me." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I was scared," she admitted. "After Dad died, it felt like if you moved on, he'd disappear completely, and I'd lose you too." There it was. Not cruelty, fear. I pulled her into my arms, feeling the familiar weight of her against me, though she was no longer small. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, "but I am going forward." She laughed weakly through tears. "I was wrong," she whispered. "Clearly people want you." I smiled. That was never the point. Over the next months, something shifted between us. She began asking about my art classes. She met Daniel, the kind-eyed history teacher from the community center, without the sarcasm she had once worn like armor. And one Sunday afternoon, as we sat in the same kitchen beneath the sunflower curtains, she looked at me thoughtfully. "You look happy," she said. "I am." She hesitated. "I think I forgot you're a person outside of being my mom." "That happens," I said lightly, "even to adults." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you?" The words meant more than any applause, but the real transformation hadn't been hers, it had been mine, because, when she laughed and said no one wanted an old woman like me, I had two choices. I could shrink, or I could expand. I chose expansion. Not to prove her wrong, not to make her cry, but to remind both of us that a woman does not fade when she turns 50. She deepens, and if someone cannot see that, it says nothing about her value. Only about their vision. The change between us did not arrive like thunder. It came like tide. Slow, persistent, unavoidable. After the rooftop night, something in my daughter's posture softened. She still moved through the world with ambition and speed, but when she looked at me, there was less judgment and more curiosity. Curiosity is the beginning of humility, and humility is the beginning of love without superiority. The first crack in her certainty. 3 weeks after the exhibition, she called me at 11:47 p.m., not a text, a call. Her voice was tight. "Mom, are you awake?" "Yes." Silence. Then, "Can I come over?" When she arrived, she wasn't polished. Her eyeliner had smudged. Her confidence, the one she wore like perfume, was missing. She sat at the kitchen table. The same table where she once practiced spelling words. The same table where she once told me she hated me at 15. The same table where she had laughed and said no one wanted an old woman like me. "He broke up with me," she said. Finally. I didn't ask who I knew. The investment analyst with the precise haircut and the habit of checking his watch during conversations. "What happened?" He said. "I'm intense." Her laugh was hollow. "That I treat relationships like performance reviews." I waited. and he said I have this fear of being left, so I leave first. That landed heavily between us. Do you? I asked gently. Her eyes filled instantly. Yes. There it was, not arrogance, not cruelty, fear. The same fear that made her laugh at me weeks earlier. The fear that if I moved forward with my life, she would be abandoned all over again. She pressed her palms to her face. I didn't want you dating because, what if he hurts you? What if you get attached and then lose someone again? I couldn't watch that. You wouldn't be watching, I said softly. You would be witnessing. There's a difference. She lowered her hands. I don't know how to not be afraid. I reached across the table. You practice a mirror. She didn't expect. A month later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership brunch organized by a local entrepreneurship group. I almost declined. Public speaking had never been my strength. But then I remembered something Clara had told me during the photo session. You don't shrink anymore. So I said yes. The morning of the event, my daughter surprised me. I'm coming, she said. To critique my presentation, I teased. To observe, she replied. The venue was elegant but not pretentious. White tablecloths, sunlight streaming through tall windows, the hum of women networking without apology. When I stepped onto the small stage, my daughter sat at the back table. I saw her immediately. She watched me the way children watch fireworks, unsure what will happen next. I was told recently, I began, that no one wants an old woman. Soft laughter rippled across the room. I believed it for about 5 minutes. I continued. Then I realized something dangerous about that sentence. I paused. It assumes that being wanted is the highest form of value. Silence. I have been wanted for my cooking, wanted for my ability to soothe, wanted for my patience, wanted for my loyalty. I let the words settle. But I was rarely respected for my autonomy. A few women nodded slowly. Age did not take my desirability. It removed my willingness to negotiate my worth. The applause was not explosive, it was deep. Afterward, women approached me with stories. Divorces at 62, career changes at 58, marathons at 70. And then my daughter approached. She didn't speak at first, she just hugged me, not the quick, polite embrace from before, the kind that says, I see you. I've been measuring myself wrong, she whispered. How? By who wants me? By how I'm perceived? By how fast I succeed? She swallowed. I don't think I've ever asked who I respect. That sentence mattered more than any applause. The unexpected invitation 2 months later, Daniel invited both of us to a small dinner gathering at his home. It was intentional. He was not just dating me, he was stepping into my life. My daughter was cordial, but cautious. Protective instincts don't vanish overnight. Dinner was warm and intimate. A few friends. Good wine, real conversation. At one point, Daniel asked my daughter about her work. She explained a recent campaign she led. How she had stayed 3 nights at the office perfecting a pitch. And what did it cost you? He asked gently. She blinked. I'm sorry, you gained success. He clarified. But what did it cost? No one had ever asked her that. She hesitated. Sleep, time, a relationship. He nodded, thoughtfully. Be careful not to sacrifice your interior life for exterior applause. The room went quiet. Later that night, as we drove home, she stared out the window. He speaks to you like an equal, she said finally. He does. He doesn't treat you like you're lucky to have him. No, I replied calmly. He knows I'm not. That made her smile. And then, unexpectedly, she cried. I've been choosing men who make me audition, she admitted. Yes, I said. Why? Because you learned early that love leaves. Her breathing hitched. I don't want to repeat that. Then don't. The breakthrough, the real shift, happened 6 months after the exhibition. Her company hosted an annual awards gala. She was nominated for a leadership recognition. She invited me, not as an afterthought, as her guest of honor. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and ambition. Speeches were sharp, applause strategic. When her name was called as the winner of the Rising Leader Award, I stood before anyone else. She walked to the stage, radiant, but instead of launching into statistics and gratitude toward executives, she paused. I was going to talk about performance metrics, she said into the microphone, but I changed my mind. My heart skipped. A few months ago, I told someone I loved that no one wants an old woman. The room shifted. My mother, you could feel the air tighten. She didn't argue with me, she didn't insult me back, she built something instead. Her voice trembled. She reminded me that worth is not tied to youth, and that respect matters more than being desired. Silence. I realized I've been chasing being wanted by bosses, by men, by peers, instead of becoming someone I respect. Her eyes found mine in the crowd. And the strongest leader I know is a 54 woman who refuses to disappear. She was crying openly. Now so if I'm rising, she said softly, it's because she showed me how. The applause was thunderous. But I didn't hear it fully, because in that moment, the young woman who once laughed at me had become someone else, not smaller, not ashamed. Awake. The conversation that closed the circulator that night. We sat on my porch, no audience, no spotlight, just crickets and the steady rhythm of breathing. I was afraid of aging, she admitted, because I thought it meant losing power. And now, I think it means refining it. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I don't want to compete with you anymore. You never were, I said softly. She laughed through tears. I know, that's the embarrassing part. I kissed the top of her head. You don't need to fear becoming me, I whispered. Why? Because I am not an ending. She looked up. I'm proof that life expands. And for the first time since that cruel sentence in the kitchen, there was no distance between us. No hierarchy, no defensiveness. Just two women. One, further along the road, one learning not to dread the journey. She once laughed and said no, one wanted an old woman like me. What I did next was not revenge, it was growth. And the tears she shed later were not from humiliation, they were from recognition, because she finally understood something that changes everything. A woman does not expire. She evolves, and when she refuses to shrink for anyone, even her own child, she becomes a blueprint. Not just for herself, but for every woman watching. The day she defended me, and finally understood her self-growth is beautiful, but it is not linear. For every breakthrough, there is a test. And ours came quietly. Almost invisibly. The comment that almost broke the peace happened at a family gathering. My sister had organized a Sunday lunch. Cousins, nephews, noise, overlapping conversations. The house smelled like garlic and roasted chicken. The television murmured in the background. Though no one was truly watching, I was in the kitchen refilling a tray when I heard it. A cousin's wife, smiling too widely, leaned toward my daughter and whispered, not quietly enough. So, your mom is dating now, right? At her age, isn't that a little ambitious? That word again. At her age, ambitious, not cruel, just condescending. My daughter stiffened 6 months earlier. She might have laughed politely, changed the subject, avoided discomfort. This time, she didn't. What's ambitious about companionship? She asked calmly. The woman shrugged. Well, you know, most women slow down. My daughter's voice didn't rise, but it sharpened. Or maybe most women are told to. Silence. I stood frozen behind the doorway, unseen. The woman shifted uncomfortably. I just mean, men prefer younger women. My daughter didn't hesitate. Men who are insecure do. The air changed. It wasn't dramatic, it was decisive. My mom isn't trying to compete with anyone, she continued. She's living. If that bothers someone, that's their insecurity, not hers. The conversation dissolved awkwardly. But something irreversible had happened. She had defended me not because I was fragile, but because she now understood. When she came into the kitchen a few minutes later, she didn't know I had heard everything. You okay? She asked casually. I looked at her for a long moment. I'm proud of you, I said. Her expression softened, then turned curious. For choosing respect over comfort. She understood instantly. You heard that, yes. She exhaled slowly. I used to think comments like that were normal, she admitted. Now they sound small. They always were. I replied gently. The fear returns, but growth rarely eliminates fear completely. It transforms it. A few weeks later, I noticed she had become quieter again. Distracted. Her company was restructuring. Promotions were uncertain. The certainty she once leaned on, achievement, recognition, upward motion, felt unstable. One evening, she sat across from me, restless. What if I plateau? She asked suddenly. In your career? Yes. And what would that mean? That I'm not exceptional. I studied her. Is that the only way to be valuable? She hesitated. Silence stretched. I don't know, she admitted. There it was again. The old measurement system. Wanted, admired, validated, double quotes. I built my identity around momentum, she said. If I stop rising, who am I? I smiled softly. You're asking the right question. That doesn't feel comforting. It isn't meant to be. She leaned back in frustration. It's easier for you. You've already proven yourself. I almost laughed. At 54, I asked, do you think doubt retires? She frowned. I still question myself. I continued. I still fear loss. I still wonder whether the next chapter will hold joy or disappointment. She looked surprised. You don't seem afraid. I am, I said calmly. I just don't let fear make my decisions anymore. That distinction settled between us. The illness life, however, doesn't wait for emotional clarity. In early winter, I fainted at the art studio. It wasn't dramatic. No collapse, no sirens in the background, just a moment of dizziness that turned into darkness. When I woke up in the hospital, my daughter was there. Her face was pale, her composure gone. What happened? I asked gently. You passed out, she said, gripping my hand too tightly. They're running tests. Her voice trembled. The same fear from years ago had returned amplified. For 2 days, we waited for results. 2 days of uncertainty, 2 days of imagining worst-case scenarios. She barely left my side. On the second night, around 2 a.m., she broke. I'm not ready, she whispered. For what? To lose you? I looked at her carefully. You thought me dating meant you were losing me, I said softly, but illness feels closer to loss than love ever could. Tears spilled freely down her face. I was selfish, she said. I wanted to freeze you in time so I wouldn't have to face this. I squeezed her hand. No one escapes time, I said gently, but we don't need to fear it every second. When the doctor finally returned with results, the diagnosis was simple: dehydration, exhaustion, low blood pressure, nothing life-threatening. Relief hit her like a wave. She cried, harder from relief than she had from fear. And I understood something crucial in that hospital room. Her laughter months ago hadn't been arrogance, it had been terror of impermanence. The conversation that changed everything. A week after the hospital scare, she came over with takeout and a seriousness I recognized. I've been thinking, she said. Dangerous, I teased lightly. She smiled faintly. I've been trying to outrun aging, she continued, as if success could insulate me from loss. I listened. But watching you these past months, seeing you build something new instead of clinging to what was, I realized something. She inhaled slowly. You're not afraid of ending chapters? No, I said quietly. I've survived them. She nodded. I've been trying to prevent endings instead of learning how to endure them. There it was. Wisdom earned, not inherited. I don't want to be scared of becoming older anymore, she said. I want to be prepared to become deeper. I felt something shift inside me, not pride, peace. You will, I told her, because now you know aging is not subtraction, it's concentration, she said. I smiled. Yes. The full circle. Months later, she signed up for therapy. Not because she was broken, but because she wanted to understand herself better. She started painting with me occasionally, not for talent, but for stillness. One afternoon, as we cleaned brushes side by side, she said something that closed the circle completely. You know what's strange? She said. What? I don't remember the last time I compared myself to younger women. I raised an eyebrow. That's new. She nodded. I used to treat youth like currency. Now I see it's just a season. She rinsed a brush slowly. And I'm not afraid of the next ones anymore. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the same young woman who had laughed in the kitchen. Not because she was ashamed, but because she had expanded just like I had. The final truth. One evening, as the sun filtered through those same sunflower curtains from years ago, she turned to me and said, do you know what actually made me cry that night at the gallery? What? Not that people admired you. She paused. It was realizing you didn't need them to. That was it. That was the lesson. Not desirability, not applause, not proving someone wrong. Autonomy. She once said no one wanted an old woman like me. What I did next wasn't dramatic. I didn't argue. I didn't shame her. I didn't shrink. I built up, lived, I expanded, and in doing so, I showed her something no lecture ever could. A woman who knows her worth does not beg to be chosen. She chooses herself. And that more than beauty, more than youth, more than attention, is what made her cry, because she realized she had never seen power like that before, until it was standing in her own kitchen, wearing silver hair. And refusing to disappear.